Okay, today I'm going to talk about a book which is in the military biography classification, and it's this One Man's SAS by Don Lofty Large. Lofty Large served in Korea during the Korean War with the Gloucesters, and he was captured and spent 18 months in a prisoner of war camp with two Chinese machine gun bullets in his shoulder. He was repatriated back to the UK as being unfit for further military service. He got himself fit and fit enough to pass selection for 2-2 Special Air Service, where he served in D Squadron in such places as Jebel Akhdar, Malaya, and so on. And that was really when the post-war SAS was being established as the force it subsequently became, able to operate in both the mountainous desert areas as well as the jungle. He was a patrol commander during the Borneo campaign, where one of the operations he was involved in was they were tasked to try to find the Coemba River, which was the supply line for the Indonesians, who were the enemy. And it was deep in Indonesian territory, so they had to infiltrate and find their way through a swamp. So for a lot of the time, Lofty was walking waist deep through this swamp, and being a very tall guy, it was waist deep for him, but for the smaller guys in the patrol, it was up to their necks. And the guys he had in his patrol, Pete, Kevin, and Paddy, were really, in a way, misfits. And the other patrol commanders told him they wouldn't take any one of his guys with them on operations, never mind all three. But for some reason, they gelled, and they were the only patrol to actually find the Coemba. They successfully found it, and they ambushed an Indonesian motor launch, and then managed to exfiltrate with a severe follow-up from the baddies, including mortars and everything. So it was quite an operation. Now, I'd heard a lot of the stories of their adventures from Pete, who I worked with on protection. And one day I was in Hereford, and Pete said, "Let's go around and see Lofty." So we went to see Lofty Large, and super guy. Absolutely, he's one of those guys that are born leaders. They inspire a lot of confidence, and you know that you'd be okay working with them. And hearing all the stories from his side as the patrol commander, rather exasperated having to corral these guys and get the job done. It was really interesting. The book covers his entire career, which was very long, and there's a whole section in the book called Clowns and Clangers, where he really points the finger at officers. Although he says there were a lot of good officers, and a lot of the squadron commanders he worked with were very good, there were a lot of what he terms clowns. And this really has been a sore point with a lot of the guys in the military generally, and particularly in special forces, because they're such a big part of a small patrol or a troop, and they have a big influence. And Lofty elaborates on a lot of the mistakes they made, and just how bad they could be at times. The book was published by Kimber, and when I first heard about it, I went around all the bookstores in Liverpool to buy it, and I found out that none of the bookshops in the area dealt with this particular publisher. You just couldn't get the book at all. I actually picked it up next time I was in Hereford in the bookshop there, and So it was rather a pity. It was, in a way, it was probably one of the first of the modern SAS memoirs to be written, particularly by one of the guys rather than an officer or an outside historian. And it deserved a much wider readership. It really does paint a very vivid picture of what it was like at those foundation times, particularly Borneo and Aden, where they were doing these back-to-back operations. And initially they only had 2 squadrons to do it, so they're really, really busy. But that's what they liked. They liked doing the ops. After leaving the military, after all these adventures in Borneo and prisoner of war camps and so on, he got a civilian job and he ended up with a heart attack, which he recovered from, fortunately. And the job was teaching women to drive. So it just shows you that there are levels of stress in any job. So if you can get hold of it, it's still available. I really do recommend it. He was a great guy. Sadly, he's passed now, and it was a real honour for me to have met him.